I would like to know first, what's the story of your farm, of your family farm?
So to begin with, I'm fourth generation of coffee grower farmers. I say four generations because I'm not sure where it started or how it started. Because, like I said, we're from Jutiapa, from a small aldea, a small village called Laguna Seca, which is next to another department, another state, if you want to say it that way, which is called Santa Rosa. So that place, it's like a green area that back in the time, I'm talking about 100 years old back, it used to be only land where no one was living. Of what I've understood of asking the oldest peoples who still remain alive there, it's who came first. And as per what I understand, it's the grandfather of my grandfather. Some say is the first one who established himself there. Some say he planted the first coffee plants, and some others say it's not him, it's his son. So I'm not sure if we're fifth
Was
or
one.
fourth. It went from generation that the land stayed on the same family, and I ended up receiving a small plot of land, which was half of one manzana.
Hmm.
Usually in Guatemala, it's about one manzana equals to 7,500 meters square.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I
Not
receive
even a hectare.
not even a hectare, a little bit less, like maybe two.
Three quarters. Yeah.
I received that land. That was back in 2016. And my father gave it to me so I could, gain a little bit more of interest on the family farm, on coffee. Back in that time, my sister was pregnant because he gave one manzana each of us. So she was pregnant and she wanted to buy a house to go or
Yeah.
start growing a family with his husband. So I offered to buy her the other half and start working a bit like I was working full time in accounting, because mainly what I studied when I was younger, it's accounting. So that's my principal job, my principal part of income. So I started working on that, and on the weekends I used to work on restaurants, save a little bit of money, and I stumbled a little bit of savings, and I bought the other half of the manzana to my sister, which it's one manzana, which is like in the village, and it's accessible for cars. That I learned later. That was the land where there was the home of my great grandfather. Obviously, it decreased because with brothers, then they give the part to one brother, and then the other one,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the other one. And back then, there used to have like families of 10 and above. It expand, and then the land just divides by each one.
What
Uh,
varieties did you grow there?
so technically, at first, I think they started with
Yeah.
Tipica and Bourbon at the village. But then I heard that those plants were really good. They were producing a lot of yields. They were good in quality. So people, I think I'm talking about way before. They could I think yield 25 pounds per tree, which is a lot compared to now. But that's back in days. The old Tipicas were, they're tall. The intronuts are really big too,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they used to grow tall and have a lot of production back in that time. So it was Typica, but then since you needed to take it all the way from the top in order to harvest, a lot of people weren't really happy about that, so they start shifting to Catois.
Hmm.
Red Catois and yellow Catois. So technically, it's yellow Catois that it's more known there.
Yeah.
Capenance, they call it. So that's most of the plantations what they had. And then I came in, and after leaf rust started, they start shifting a little bit. Like I said, in 2016 I acquired the lot, and back in 2021 I got married with my wife, which is
Yeah.
from Guatemala. And later on she got pregnant, and I went to live for 1 year to Guatemala. We decided to move back to the town where my father is. And at that time, I started, spending more time on the coffee farm. So, I had more time for myself. and we started, invested more time on the farm, taking care more of the small details. And later on, in 2022, I decided to start processing my coffee. And I came up with the idea of processing my coffee in Guatemala and bringing it to here in Montreal, which, there was a lot of challenges on that time, because technically you have, I never processed coffee before. I subscribed myself to CQI for the
Yeah.
QP1
Yeah.
in order to prepare myself. So I did that in 2022, and then I learned a lot from there. I had the chance also to reach someone from Ana Cafe, which is a QP3 from CQI. It's
Yeah.
called Roberto Soto. So he's a well-known person in Guatemala and also in the
Latin
coffee.
America. Yeah.
I did learn a lot from him. Whenever I had questions or I wasn't sure about something, he said to me that I was free to ask him. And even though if it was busy, he always tried to have a bit of time for me in order to answer to my questions. He helped me a lot. I technically start swimming without knowing how. Start processing my coffee. So since it was the first year, I did like all the processing that you can do, washed, honeys, naturals, in order to understand all the aspects of it, all the small details. I did learn a lot on that year. I spent a lot of time at the dry place. It's not just my work and my, let's say, my dedication that paid off, but also the plant was receiving a lot of water. Also, I was, eventually, obviously, putting fertilizer and working the fields correctly, because I was in 2022 spending almost all my year there. Everything on the agriculture side was really good. I ended up, focusing on post harvest and processing implementations. And I ended up creating the company, associating myself as a producer exporter from Guatemala, which is linked with Ana Cafe. Then I created a company here in Canada, small company, obviously. And in 2023, I ended up shipping my coffee from Guatemala to Canada. I think it went not bad. Let's say producer perspective. When you have let's say a good product, it's a bit easier for you. You don't need too much to sell it. Like coffee, you send samples, people taste it, and then you give the price, or you come, in agreement with
An
the price,
agreement. Yeah.
and then the roaster decides if they want to take it or not. But usually, if you have a good product, it's a bit easier for you if you're in a
Specialty coffee.
specialty industry. It's a bit more easier for you to be able to sell it. And also the fact that I might not be doing all the work, from the farm to the producing side, because I have employees who help me, which I pay them. But just by doing everything from scratch from the beginning to the end, I think roasters, they do like that, because at the same time you can explain if the coffee when it comes here, it's not the same as pre-shipment sample.
Yeah. Mhm.
Then you can understand why is that so, right? And then later on, I did QP2 with Roberto Soto in Guatemala in Ana Cafe in Finca Las Flores. It's a small farm of Ana Cafe, which is located in Barberena, Santa Rosa. I did learn a lot from that too.
I understand now. Now with your new information and certifications, you are more aware of post-harvest processing in order to maintain this quality that you already had and from the plant to the fruit. What's your intention when you do that? What kind of goal you looking for?
Technically, I'm a bit let's say here they say you go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
agreed.
Maybe it's not correct. I always try to have a plan each year during each harvest, but I try to, let's say, be a bit flexible. Like let's say if I tend to do, let's say example, I tend to do a wash if I see that the conditions of the climate conditions, if it's gonna be really sunny during that month, let's say of the harvest, or it's gonna be rainy, or it's gonna be in between, or the temperatures are going to be really high or really low, then I try to kind of, because initially I have a plan, but I try to motivate myself in order to make work my plan, my initial plan, but maybe more work with how the climate is going, because technically I do everything on raised beds, on
Yeah.
an open area. Technically, I have to try to let's say swim with the, in Spanish we say con la corriente. So I try to modulate myself to go as the climate goes. That's my goal, and I try to also focus always on two things, because some people really want to they make it a lot of emphasis on fermentation. I like fermentation a lot, and I think it helps a lot of producers. But I try to focus more myself on drying. That's what I like personally, and that's what I see, that if I do a lot of attention and I put a lot of detail on the drying, I know that's gonna pay me more than if I take care of the fermentation. Like the fermentation, it's like a small portion of the post-harvest part, which is really important. But let's say if I focus more on the drying, which takes a lot more of time, because let's say
Yeah.
normal fermentation can go up to 24, 36, depending on on your climate, on the conditions that you have. That's a regular one, right? Not extending, nothing. That takes maybe one day, half of one day, like 1 to 2 days, let's say. And then your drying can take to, if you try to take care of really of your drying conditions and try to make it perfect, it can take you up to, let's say, 12, 15 days on on a good wash. And then if you go on honeys, it takes way more. And then if you go on naturals, it's going to take you starting from 20 days to above, right?
When you dry your coffee, do you divide the drying process in stages, or and what's the main goal each one, if you have one?
So technically what I try to do when I, because now also I forgot to mention that on my part. So when I received the suggestions of Roberto, which I took really into heart, I had two possibility back at that time when I started to process coffee. So at my drying area, I could do it at the farm, which is at higher elevation, 1,600 meters above, or in a lower place, which is obviously more drier and more hot.
Yeah.
So I decided to do it there because that's what Roberto recommended me, and I think it was a good thing. But
Yeah.
now this year I'm moving everything to the farm because it's a bit more easy, because it does cost some money to bring all the
Yeah.
coffee from, and I don't invest into processing a lot of coffee. I really do on small scale. So I'm moving my coffee from that place this year, which I'm gonna have to learn how to work again with the my environment. So usually I had it before at 1,000 meters above the sea level, so it was really hot and dry. So I bought shades,
Hmm.
and with the shades, technically it makes that the temperature drops.
Yeah.
Maybe not the wind and the humidity ambient, but the temperature. So it does help in a certain way. So that way I could do any type of processing. But I like to start, let's say, because when you start the harvest, usually it's for me, it's at the end of January, starting February, and then it can go up to March due to my elevations in Guatemala. But some people start in December and or end of December, and during, let's say, December, January, usually there's no rain, and it's the more you go towards, let's say, January, February, you go to higher temperatures during those months. So it's a bit, it's more dry, and it's more there's more heat. So
Yeah.
I like to start with the small pick, the first picking. I like to start with naturals first, because naturals are gonna tend to take more time to dry. So if you dry it at the beginning of the harvest, you have more chance not to have water in between, in the,
Yeah.
let's say, in the middle
Yeah.
of the month
Yeah.
or in the middle of the drying, and you have time to dry everything at once, and then you can. Then I switch to heater honeys, or washed, but I like more honeys because you don't have to use water, which is we're in lack in our place of water.
You know what they say during drying process, you have three stages of the moisture content. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you need to get rid of the most of the moisture in the first 3 or 4
phase.
days, and then just after 18 percentage of humidity, maybe you're fine. But that's
Yeah,
the last stage.
yeah.
So can you elaborate a bit more about it if you
So
have?
so technically, I think and maybe not everyone is aware of that, but technically in the CQI class, I think they show you that. So basics. Maybe they don't get elaborate as much, but they show you like the principles of drying. Let's say. So usually I start with my naturals, because obviously if you don't dry it in a good rate at the beginning of the drying stage, then you can have an increase of mold, which obviously maybe some people's do like the taste. There's always a space and a room
Yeah.
for different flavors, but technically, if you want to have clean coffees, you start with a thin layer of drying, which is usually and it's the same way as for washed. Maybe people don't see it that way, but for wash is the same thing. So you start with thin layer, and then when let's say for the naturals, they start to be like at first they're like red, right? And it's really like anything they can open and release the parchment because they're ready, right? They're ripe. So technically, after 1, 2, 3 days, depending on your conditions, it start to be like let's say like the pasas,
Yeah.
the grapes dry, the ones that you buy, they start to be the same way. They start to be more hardened, the skin,
Yeah.
and start to like the sugar kinds of dries in the same, and it sticks with the
Encapsulated there. Yeah.
cascara. It sticks with the parchment in some way if you don't touch it, because you don't have to touch it because it's really easy to open, right? 1, 2, 3 days. Usually, I start with a thin layer of one parchment or one cherry high, and then I sum it. I sum it into 2, 3 cherry high per beds. Then it's just about rotating the coffee, making sure the temperatures are good and the moisture as well. Because if it's too thick, it's too high, your naturals, then it can recreate mold and in the middle of the process, depending on if the moisture of the ambient. That's why I'm saying the drying phase, it's really, really, really important. That's where I try to focus more myself on.
Do you pay attention to temperature of the bean of the
Yes,
fruit? Yeah.
yes. So that's technically I have three types of moisture tools. One, it's a gun.
Yeah.
So on the first surface, you're gonna have I'm gonna try to be on certain temperatures, and then I have one moisture meter. It gives me on the when I'm connected to Wi-Fi, but let's be honest that in the farms you don't have internet, so it can be some difficult sometimes. But that one gives you it's called a data logger. So it gives you the temperatures and the moisture ambient on air, not inside the
Yeah.
mass, but on air it gives you like an approximate of the temperatures during the day. So that way you can try to modulate your ambient, and that's why I'm using shade drying over the raised beds. And also, since it's two levels, so I have 130 beds, 133 to be exact, but I have two levels. So there's one more next to the ground, and there's one on top. So usually I start with the beds on top to drain the water, make the dryer faster of the first days, and then I switch everything to, like I said, I sum everything to 2, 3 layers of the cherry high, and I leave it on the top. But if I see that the temperatures rise a bit too much, as per what I like. It depends on the person, but me, I like to be on a certain range. So when I see it goes a bit more above that range, I take the beds and I put it all the way to the bottom. So that way I know it's gonna be higher in moisture because there's even less light that comes in, and it's gonna be drying it's gonna be slower dry, but at the same time it's not gonna be increasing as much the temperature as I would like. So that's another way to kind of modulate with the drying in that aspect. It takes a lot of time, a lot of
How
a lot
many
of
days,
learning.
more or less?
Let's say on that place that had 1,000 meters, I used to dry from 21 to 25 days, depending on the temperature of, because it always changes. Let's say if this year it's gonna be this, then next year it can be higher or it can be lower, right? Or it can even be rain. So, and that's why also I start with my naturals first, because the rain usually comes more in, let's say, end of February, March, and January, February. It's kind of impossible that it rains, but you you have no control of it, so it can rain, but it's really rare. Let's say.
It's interesting that you mentioned, and I have this question lined up for you about climate change. But it's interesting that you say not deciding everything, but depending of the circumstances. Yes,
Yeah.
depending of the weather, of how it's predicts to become or to behave. Is that what you do?
Yeah, yeah. So technically, that's what I do. At first, like I said, in 2022, I started with my drying and all. It was my first year that I started. I had really high, I had really high cupping scores when I cupped everything. Because I cupped everything with Anacafe that year. All the lots that I produced, wash, naturals, and honeys. So I had a range of, let's say, the washed, which I didn't do much work on it, and I did like 24 hours, sorry, of fermentation. So it was a standard. I had 85 points, which is pretty good, just by having a good drying rate. I focused more on the honeys and the naturals, and I ended up having a range of 87 to 88 points of
Just by
both,
changing the process, yeah.
just by changing the processing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, in Spanish, they say, te inflas la cabeza. Like, I kind of, it went up to me on that year, and I thought, like, okay, that's it. I know everything, and
I'm
I'm
going for
good to
top of
go.
excellence. Thanks.
So yeah, that was kind of my feeling that year. And then 2023, I'm pretty sure everyone kind of experience that. I'm 100% sure. Of course, depending on the countries, but I think everyone had a big lack of water during the full year. Bring me back to reality. Lack of water. Also, during the harvest season, there was a big heat. Exclusively in Guatemala. I'm not sure for the other countries, but in Guatemala, we reach. I remember I was like when I was processing, because you do it under the sun. I had shades, but even that, I felt like I was out of water. Like I felt like I was dehydrated because
Yeah.
of the high temperatures that were going on during the beginning of that year of 2024. No water, also high heat. If us as human, we can feel it and it can impact us. Imagine the plants. The plants are more sensible than us. What I've realized and I've seen is that the plants really got affected. So first it started, even though if we work with, we put the fungicides and all, and we try to make sure that everything is good. If you have no water, then the plants they become more vulnerable to any type of disease. Let's say fungicides or
Yeah.
insects. They get more vulnerable, even though if you work on them. I focus more that year than the first year on drying fermentation. I applied yeast on on my fermentations. Everything was perfect up to the point that every cherries was selected one by
Yeah.
one and by
Yeah.
end, and I had like perfect drying curve on my end. I did everything perfect, and I worked double than the previous year. But I saw that the quality did decrease a lot due to the high heat. And it's not just that year of the harvest that due to the lack of rain and the high heat, that we got affected. It's also this year I can see it, because this year it's the opposite. There wasn't dry. There wasn't a dry season. There wasn't a lack of water. So it was the opposite. A lot of rain, good temperatures, and I just came back from Guatemala like last week. So I can tell you, like, the climate was really cold with water. Like it does change a lot the environment. Like
Yeah.
On the night it was really really cold because I stayed at the farm, sleeping during all my stay in there, and you could see it like the plants they kind of because of whatever happened the harvest of before, the plants were they didn't produce much, so I had a big drop of production this year. The high heat kind of interfere with the flowering. Obviously the flowering makes that, the botoncillo, the
Mm-hmm.
cangrejo green,
Doesn't grow. Yeah, it doesn't
it,
blossom.
it stays and then
Yeah.
it grows, right? But since there was too many high heat and not enough water, then the plant, I believe, did not work on the flowering as they would have done if they were, in full health
Yeah.
with no issues. So I had a big drop this year as well of the production of yield. But the good thing is that since there wasn't big production and there was a lot of water, the cherries they had more bricks, they were more juicier, they were more red. The ripening stage was really the same with all the trees. So we did only two picking, and it was like usually it goes like this, and it always with the flowering, right? So, but this year everything was like kind of uniform, and it was kind of the best ripening stage that I could see from many years before.
Just to wrap things up, how you perceive your relationship with and your openness from roasters in, for instance, Montreal, Canada. Now that you can be there, present yourself, and they know that you are the one growing this coffee and doing everything else to bring the green coffee basically to their door.
I'm pretty lucky. And also maybe it's also depends on what type of sector or what do you do exactly. Technically, I can say that by doing everything at my best in terms of quality, also working with the ambient, I do see that people are more interested to reach out to me and try the coffees and try to support my project. Also, I don't do like I said, I have not much land. I have 2 hectares in total. I received the first land from my father first. Then I bought another land where I have Tikisik, not Katwai, which I'm going to be renewing soon. And one of Katwai, I changed it. Now I have Geisha, which is going to be producing this year. By selling the coffee to the roasters directly, also they send me samples of my own coffee, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes some roasters make me try different type of roasting stage with my coffee, and then sometimes we kind of I give my opinion, and they are open to it, and some that also allows me to kind of modulate myself on each year to
Yeah.
see, okay, well, maybe this year I can do this and it's going to be better because I can try a different type of roasting process than being at origin as well. And I think the partnership really works better as well, but it's not something that you can also find usually, right? To be working directly to a producer from a roasting point.
I think you are on a good path and a good pace as well, because I think it takes a lot of patience for anyone in the agro, like the agronomics. It takes patience and it takes time to see results.
Like let's say now, because I did in 2022 at the end, I planted the acacia fields, which I'm starting to see that they're growing. But at first, you're kind of you see the small plants and you're saying, is it gonna work? Is it gonna bring back the investment? Because it takes a lot of investment. Like
Yeah.
it's not just buying the plant or buying the seed and doing the germination. It's also, making sure that everything is on point before planting the tree. Then you plant the tree. You have to make sure that your soil is good. You have enough shade, or you don't have too much shade. You have to work the field because when they're younger, they require more work. So you have to clean the fields because if you have too much weed in
Yeah.
the fields, the trees, they just don't grow. So all the conditions when you plant the trees, they need to be perfect during the full year, not just, one time at the year. You need to work harder when they're younger in order for them to grow fast and start producing. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be investing a lot on fertilizer and other stuff. Your plant's going to take, let's say, 5 years, 6 years to grow.
Well, David, thank you very much for your time and your generosity to share your experience. I hope there's going to be lots of questions, further questions. I'm going to just share your information, the Instagram account. Yeah.
Yeah, just forgot to mention also that my QP1 instructor, which is my mentor, who helped me a lot, I forgot to mention him, is called Price Castleton. He's a really knowledgeable person in the coffee industry. He's been helping me a lot. He's also a QP3 from CQI, but he's been helping me a lot during all my my coffee path. He's been a true mentor and a true friend that been helping me from the beginning to the end on the processing.